Hey everyone, and welcome to our network. This is the Magical Miracle Network. And my name is Ruth Perkinson, and I'm happy all of you are here with me today. I have what I might just call our in-house expert on psychology. We have Dr. Nathaniel Mason with us today. So welcome, Nathaniel.
Hi, nice to be with you all. So I wanted to quickly introduce myself. You might have seen me in previous videos, Dr. Nathaniel Mason, and I am a current counselor and a counselor educator for students learning how to do therapy. I went to William and Mary for my master's and my PhD, and I'm just, really excited to be here with you all today to marry two topics that I think are very important in the world and to me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we really need your wisdom right now. I really feel that. And so, what we're going to be doing, Nathaniel and I have been talking about, or Dr. Mason, we can call you either or, about bringing forward the message of the two thought systems that A Course in Miracles talks about as a potential complement to the psychiatric and psychological community out there in the world. And even as I speak of this, Nathaniel, I'm getting a bit of a chill, and I call it like the goosebumps or chicken skin, and it always makes me feel really good, like we're really on track. So we've been talking for about a month or so about this particular idea about bringing forth the message of the two thought systems out into that particular place, the psychiatric and psychological communities, as a complement. So I was thinking we could speak about that a little bit today.
I think it's a great idea. And I actually would love to take something that you just said and make it like a teachable moment, which is the fact that you said you got some goosebumps. I think that is an example right there of the sign that something is in right minded thinking. That our bodies, a lot of times in A Course in Miracles, we think about our bodies being vessels for messages from the Holy Spirit and messages on how to forgive on earth. And also, it's going to give us the emotional messages as to whether or not what we're thinking is in line with who we really are, or if it's a departure from who we are and it makes us feel like we're suffering. And when we're in line with who we are, that message, the emotional message is going to feel good. So, like when we get goosebumps, it's like I'm in alignment, I'm in attunement with what I should be doing right now. So, I actually love that you even said that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of what we want to talk about is being in alignment, being in attunement with that messenger of love in our thought system, because it is a thought system.
Hmm.
And when we're in alignment with that in that place, then we can think and we can speak and we behave accordingly. And to
Yes.
your point, when we depart from that, I love that word, depart, then we are in the wrong-minded thought system, which is the thought system of the ego.
Yes, it's so true. And I think that sometimes in the mental health world, and the good thing is there's a lot of newer practitioners that don't ascribe to this. But if we think a lot about where mental health came from with old theories and old ways of thinking, there was this sometimes overwhelming feeling of you have to suffer for a lot of your life to be able to overcome things. You have to be in wrong minded thinking a lot of the time in order to really correct your behavior. And I don't ascribe to that with my clients. I think that you can have moments, you can sometimes have periods when you're in wrong minded thinking. But I think once you feel the contrast of how it feels to be in right minded thinking, and by right minded thinking, we mean in line with who you are as a whole person, right? Your spirit, your higher self, that kind of wise mind part of you. Some people call it their inner therapist, right? Their inner guide. That feels really good when we're in those spaces. It feels good when we're in that alignment. And you can feel just as much of a contrast when you're in the space of kind of that ego self, which is I feel powerless. I feel like I'm suffering. I don't feel that I have a grasp on who I am or what my purpose is. And you can get that out of small moments of being in that space instead of having to be in it for years and years and years and years.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for that. I really like the way you're breaking that down for us. So maybe what we could do is, I really do think that this is going to be so helpful to bring forward this information to, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so brand new. It's only about 50 years old, this A Course in Miracles. I'm just going to show the book real quick for people who are new or watching this video who are new to A Course in Miracles. This is what the book looks like. This is the scribe authorized version of A Course in Miracles. It's a great document, a living document, and it's all about the mind. And so if this document is all about the mind, wouldn't it be so helpful as, again, a complement to the psychiatric and psychological communities to use that if it's a good approach for the practitioner and also if it resonates with the client? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they teach us in school is to be religiously and spiritually competent with our clients. And I know for me, I can speak to my experience, and the research also shows this as well. There are a lot of clients out there with pretty significant religious trauma, and they might have grown up in a background where they felt like their system they grew up in was very oppressive. It might have been that it was too focused on judgment or sin, what's right versus wrong. And it leaves them with a feeling of being very disempowered and questioning themselves. Right.
Yeah.
And so what I have found is no matter if that person still associates with being someone who believes in a higher power all the way to, fundamentally an atheist who doesn't believe what's out there, some of the principles of A Course in Miracles are so in tune with what I'm going to call, yeah, like right mindedness, what I call capital T truth, that it sort of transcends a person's belief system and it can still be incredibly helpful.
Wow, thank you. That's really helpful to know that sort of that spectrum, whether you're
Mm-hmm.
all the way here or all the way over here. It doesn't really matter. It can be helpful to a client. And again, I think it comes back to what really resonates,
Yes.
and you can try it, plant a seed. If it works, great. You know, awesome. And if it doesn't, then you can certainly go to a different modality. Um, do you think that, speaking of that religious trauma, can you give us like a generalized example maybe you've come across in your practice where you were able to identify that? And then what was an approach that you were maybe using with that being?
Yeah, sure. So I've had clients who, let's say they grew up with parents who are from a very fundamentalist background, like a very fundamentalist Christian background. And they grew up thinking that their role was to, you know, be a parent. Their role was to be a leader in a church. Their role was to, quote unquote, guide and shepherd new lives into the world, into their belief system. And then when they get to young adulthood or even college or whatever work, professional development they're going through, they start realizing I don't want that life that I thought I wanted for myself. And I never really did. It was sort of prescribed for me. And one of the things that I have found is that even though the confidence is there and their intuition, that I kind of know deep down what I want, it takes some uncovering of the blocks of, I would say, the voices that are critical that they grew up hearing in order to fully realize that.
Yeah, I think that's a very, I wrote down the word inner critic because I think that when we get into that religious, which is very dualistic,
Yes.
and then we are taught the dualism there, and then we believe in it, and so you definitely believe that you're, I'll just say it, original sinner. You're God's going to punish you, those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. And when you teach that to a very young being,
Mhm.
that's traumatizing, you know. I'm just gonna say it.
It is.
It really, yeah, it really is. And so I think what we want to try to do as we bring forward this message of A Course in Miracles and the two thought systems as an approach is to be able to teach beings, parents, teachers, guardians, the psychiatric community that, hey, even if you went through that, we can begin to unpack that with being able to explain to people that we have two different thought systems. And if I had known that, and you know my story 25 years ago, I think that, or the psychiatrist who was helping me 25 years ago knew that,
Mhm.
my whole trajectory in my lifetime would have changed. It would have been that powerful for me.
That's significant. That's huge.
And I was medicated, overly medicated.
Mhm.
I lost 2 years of my life, overly medicated. And I just kept thinking that I was doomed to be ascribed this uh whatever it is, the DSM manual, whatever, you know, we have all
Mhm.
kinds of different things. I was just doomed to be in this place for the rest of my life. And that's really a rough assignment or diagnosis that I was given. Now, I don't agree with that diagnosis anymore. I'll just say it because
Mhm.
I'll be very honest with on this channel. I was diagnosed bipolar.
Mhm.
And that diagnosis is completely and from my perspective, of course, having gone through so much healing is absolutely 100% incorrect for me. And you know, and so I think that people at that time were probably doing the best that they could. But there was a lot of misinformation, disinformation, bad information, bad drugs, you know, those kinds of things. And so I'm not really blaming anybody, but I am just, it was part of my script.
Mhm.
But I do feel like what I want to do now with you, because I think you're brilliant. I'm going to say it. And is to really help bring forward this message that we can, when we know better, we can do better.
Yes, when we know better, we do better. And so I think I think that's such a good segue to like what is, people might be asking, what's a concrete approach that I use that's quote unquote in line with the Course in Miracles? Well, when you think about that inner critic and you think about how that voice makes you feel, and you think about where does that show up in your body, where does it show up in your self-confidence, like how does it impact the way you relate to the world and relate to other people, it becomes really obvious. You feel disempowered, you feel separated, you are feeling maybe judgmental of yourself and other people. And so having that space to be able to tap into that really gives a client the opportunity to ask themselves, like, am I happy with the way things are? I can accept the way things are. I don't have to judge myself for it, but am I happy with it? Does it actually get me closer to a better way of living and being? And the answer for these clients that I've been with is no, they weren't happy with it. And that's very similar, I think, metaphorically, but also in some ways, literally, to what A Course in Miracles talks about in terms of, the voice of the Holy Spirit versus the voice of the ego. However, you define what the Holy Spirit is, it's a voice that always gives you the right message at the right time. It's a voice of self compassion, it's a voice of compassion for others. It is a voice for the doing the next right thing that's going to help you get through the day and get through some of the trials and tribulations versus the ego, which is going to want to blame and it's going to want to project and it's going to want to self blame and self destruct and destruct others. And of course, we'll get into that with future videos. But I think just to give like a concrete example, the big thing that I like to do with clients is to help them recognize when that voice comes up, like when that really critical self talk starts to arise in the situations that trigger it.
Right. Thank you for that. And that's really important. I'm glad you brought up the voice because, when we hear voices, who's talking,
Yeah.
and so everybody on planet Earth is dealing with two different voices.
Hmm.
One is, that the voice for love, and one is the voice for fear. And so being able to distinguish or discern the difference between the two voices
Hmm.
is, I think, partly part of what we can do on this series that we're going to develop here on this channel with you, is being able to distinguish some practical examples that will help people. And I just sort of came out of the closet with that, but that's very important because I do want to also mention, and maybe you can help me here, is that there's hope.
Hmm.
I thought I was just this hopeless case 25 years ago, and now I've really done a 180 with my mind. And by practicing, forgiveness and love, and understanding and just being able to discern now the difference between right-minded thoughts and wrong-minded thoughts. And also, when you're getting information from someone out there who's in a power position, are they in their right mind? Are they in their wrong mind? Kind of
Hmm.
calibrating with the person who's in front of you, or do they resonate with you? Does this doctor who's in front of you, whether it be a medical professional, are they resonating with you? And if they're not resonating, then it's time to move on, maybe to the next person, or to the next kind of approach that would be helpful and resonate most with you. So the two
And
voices. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, no, no, no. I want to hear what you have to say with that
No,
last
I
piece.
was I was done there. Go ahead.
I think that, yeah, I love that you brought that up because I mean, and I'll just be very honest, and I've said this for years, but sometimes my clients will say something and I'm like, well, damn, like I just learned something. Like, temporarily they may be, or on a complete subject, they are in a better frame of mind that's listening to their higher self in a way that's even more clear than I'm at, you know?
Oh, you know what? Thank you for that. Yes, thank you for saying that because
Hmm.
I do, I have clients as well. And sometimes to your point, sometimes they'll say something, I'll be like, I didn't know that, or that was really helpful. And I think if the clinical community, psychiatric community can say, hey, you're right there, I was wrong. That's a better way. And so you just taught me there. So, and then oftentimes, what we want to often or understand is that the Holy Spirit, the higher mind, is in charge of the healing between the client, the professional, between the two. And that's really what's going on in any communication with a client and a psychiatrist.
Yeah. And I think it's so true. And I mean, I've met people that don't even necessarily ascribe to the new age belief system that have said that they swear that when they put themselves out there or open up a private practice or start seeing clients somewhere, that they come to them and it feels like it's like meant to be, like it's something about their life that is then reflected in the clients, or the clients are there to teach them something, they're there to teach the client something. So I think when we talk about relationships not being on accident, right, I think a lot of times I think about some of the clients I've had for a while, or people who I have yet to meet, or people who maybe I've only met for a couple of sessions. And I'm grateful, and it's kind of fun to think about what role have they played in my life and vice versa.
Right. Oh, so well said. Well, I love that we're going to be doing this on this network. Thank you, Nathaniel. This is great. And so before we end today, we've talked about a lot in a sense, but the idea, we're just going to recap, is that we want to bring the message forward to, I'm getting another chill as I say this, to the psychiatric and psychological communities and university and colleges and schools out there, to bring this message forward that everyone on earth is dealing with two thought systems and or two voices. And what we're trying to do is get that information out there so people can really identify the difference between the two and know that they're not crazy, you know?
Mhm.
you're not crazy. You're going to be okay. And we've got this information and it's time for it to be, I feel, out there. So any final thoughts on that from your perspective?
Yeah, I think people will maybe get upset or nervous that they, maybe don't hear a voice, but a lot of times it's not like always a voice. Like that's what's used in A Course in Miracles. That's what you and I have said this conversation, but I wanted to clarify that a lot of times it's also like your intuition, or it can come in different forms than just a voice, right? It can come in
Yes.
symbols. It can come in whatever form you're ready for.
Right. Exactly. And so, yeah, it could be like just a feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and or something, the Holy Spirit is showing you something out there that's coming towards you as a reflection of,
Yes.
your thinking, so, oh my gosh. Well, I love you. Thank you for being on the network today. And we're
So
going to see you
welcome.
soon for another one of these conversations. And that's what we're doing is we're conversating, bringing the message forward to all of those beings out there. Well, thank you again. And I'm going to find the stop button. I'll give you the last word.
Let's see. I have a favorite podcaster who always says, if you haven't told yourself this today, or if nobody has told you this, I love you. So be kind to yourself and be well. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I love you.
Yeah, absolutely.